Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Brian Chaney. I'm the CEO of Korkers Footwear. And today I was going to tell you a little bit about my story and how perseverance encapsulates a lot of the story and how I got started in the business. To begin with, I realized when I started thinking about how many crazy stories I have from being in this business and how many obstacles that we've overcome and just all the challenging times. So I guess in short, I have a Rolodex of stories that are challenging, interesting, and really put me through the ringer several times. I decided not to focus on the time that we drove ice cleats, Sean was there, to all the G.I. Joe's locations during snowstorms to deliver ice cleats because they sell like crazy during snowstorms, to the 30 locations around the Northwest, literally risking our lives driving on ice-filled streets, only to get left with an $80,000 bill after they went bankrupt and getting stuck with that. I decided not to talk about the 42-hour return trip from China where I got stuck on a flight on the tarmac for 16 hours before they canceled the flight. We watched 2 movies and had dinner on the tarmac. It was a lot of fun. And then I got to sleep on the floor of the Japanese Narita airport. And when I got back, I vowed I'd probably never want to go back there. Those are just a couple stories. What I did decide to focus on is a dingy, dark basement, a golf cleat tool, and a story about a Chinese factory. So those are the 3 stories I'm going to focus on today. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm a local Portland, born and raised in Portland, graduated from Central Catholic High School, went to college in the Bay Area and lived in the Bay Area for 10 years. I started my career with Xerox in sales and had a pretty good start to my career there. I got Rookie of the Year for the San Francisco Bay Area, and after my first year, I was making 6 figures and really doing well. I was kind of one of the top salespeople in my office. But after about 4 or 5 years, I got a little bit tired of kind of being a smaller cog in a big machine, and I wanted to do something different. And so I started looking around for different opportunities. And my dad actually brought an opportunity to me to come back to Portland and work with a company called Korkers. And at the time, the business was about $350,000 in sales, and they had a very limited product line, basically traction footwear. And they had a concept that they were working on that was interchangeable outsoles. So it was a month. There was a lot of, and then our product, although it had won some awards and was pretty well liked, there were some problems with it. So kind of the first 60 days of the job was pretty challenging. I had to not only really figure out ways to cut overhead, but we had to move. We had to get our supply chain from China figured out because we never could deliver product on time. So we would book all these orders and then not deliver them. A lot of challenges. So the first 60 days, the dingy, dark basement, we essentially moved into the cheapest place that we could find, which is about 3,000 square foot of basement warehouse space. And I had to cut the workforce from about 9 people down to 4 just to kind of make it all work. And we were doing a lot of small assembly and production work in the US, and we were getting a lot of our core products from Asia. So they kind of had this dual model that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So we had to get the supply chain figured out. So the first 60 days, 90 days was super challenging. I had to let go people that I had worked alongside with that actually had been with the company longer than I had. I had to let go some people that were a little bit older in their 50s and relied on the income to support their families. So it was really challenging. And so looking back on it, the kind of first story about perseverance was that first 90 days making a lot of those tough decisions. And I look back and like, why would anyone ever want to come to work for the company when we're in this really dark, dingy basement? I mean, it was really not a pretty place to have your world headquarters. So that was really my first kind of story of perseverance, where I just had to make a lot of hard decisions. It was really challenging. But we were able to make it. We were kind of able to forge ahead, and we fixed some of our problems. We were able to get the company kind of to back to about a break even. And so we knew we had some problems with the product, so we went to work on fixing some of the problems. And lucky enough, like Sean mentioned earlier when he was doing his intro, there's a lot of great design companies here. There's a lot of different people that are talented that were able to help us. And we kind of came up with a unique way of paying them, which was based off of a down payment, a small down payment for some design work, but then we based it on a royalty payment based on how the product's sold. And the designers that we worked with kind of liked that idea because they had designed shoes for Nike and Adidas, and the shoes went on to sell millions of pairs, and they still always got paid the same whether it sold one pair or 10 million. So they kind of liked the idea. So anyways, being crafty, we were able to kind of come up with our own solution. So we got some great design work. Everything was going well. Normally, footwear design usually takes between 12 and 18 months to get a product from concept to market. But we were smaller, and I thought we could do it faster. So we tried to make that happen in 6 months. So we're moving a million miles an hour, but we really knew that we were at a critical point where we had to improve our product because there were some problems that were starting to happen, becoming a little bit more rampant. So the way it works with China is you get prototypes back and forth, and it takes time. So we started getting our prototypes, and they looked pretty good. Everything was kind of moving along, and we're getting down to the wire where we have to make some decisions. And we got our last round of prototypes in, and they, with our concept, it's an interchangeable outsole. So basically, the sole snaps into a midsole, and you can change your traction. So you can pull the sole off of the shoe, snap it on, and have a studded traction or whatever else. And so get the final round of samples, everything looks good, but the product won't snap together. Like it won't work. And the previous versions did work. So here we are, we got to make a decision whether we go forward or we don't go forward. And we really felt we were at a critical point in terms of the market needs this new product. I don't know if we can go another year with the product with having some of the issues that we had. So I flew over to Asia, and all of a sudden I'm playing product developer, which I really had no business doing or had at the time. It'd be like probably any one of you going over to Asia, not knowing anything, and sitting in a development room trying to figure out how to snap these parts together. So I'm sitting there, and if you've ever been to Asia, they kind of like this kind of dog and pony show where they want to entertain you, and it's just everything's moving a million miles an hour. And anyways, I'm sitting there just like, what are we going to do? This isn't working. I was super stressed out about it. I was like, we can't just, no matter how hard we tried, we're just squeezing these things in, they wouldn't pop in. So sitting there after a few hours, I saw a golf cleat tool sitting on one of the tables because they have other samples from other brands. And I was like, well, if we use this tool, we can kind of get this thing to snap in, right? And like, all of a sudden I'm like, we're going with that. Like, that's the way it's going to work. We're going with the golf tool. And like, it had no, it was never part of our design to have a tool because our first system didn't have a tool. So we knew we had to improve the product, but the golf tool was what made it snap in. And I mean, literally, everyone, so we brought the product out. The company was able to kind of take the next steps forward. We solved the problems that we had set out to solve, but people were like, why did you have to make that tool with it? And I was like, you have no idea the story behind why this tool ever came to be. But that was another story of just being in an environment and a circumstance where we were literally up against the ropes, had to make some tough decisions, and a golf tool that's sitting on a table was the solution. And it turned out to be a solution for about 3 to 4 years. And then we came out, when Sean joined the company, we came out with the next generation, which took us even further as a company. So those are a couple stories of how perseverance and just being crafty and sticking with it tends to pay off. The last story is about a Chinese factory. And Sean mentioned that he was a CEO at Korkers, and we brought him in to help us go beyond the fishing business, which is one of our primary categories, into winter boots and his experience at Columbia. and with some other brands we thought would really help us, and so that was very helpful. The challenge was that we had launched some winter boot products, and we had some winters that really didn't show up. And so it's, as a smaller brand trying to get started, winter boots sell when there's cold weather. And if you don't have the cold weather, you don't really sell too many boots. So we had our first season and it didn't go. I mean, we got into some pretty good retailers, but they didn't have very good sell-through. And that happened the second season as well. So we're kind of going into this third season, and it's pretty important. We actually got into some REI stores. We opened up and expanded our distribution into some of the best retailers around. So a lot was riding on this this fall and winter season. And this is the time when Sean transitioned out of Korkers. And one of the things that we were most concerned about was when Sean came in, I kind of stepped away from a lot of the development in China stuff, and I didn't really have the relationships that we had fostered over a 4 or 5 year period together. So we were talking about how the transition in Asia would be the most difficult really for us, for me and for the business. And literally like 4 days after Sean left, our factory, we get a call from one of our employees over there that says, the factory's locked, it's closed, and I can't get in, and they have security guards all around the factory. So 4 days into the job as CEO, back into the role of CEO, we don't have a factory. And actually they were in the process of working on our product, not only winter boots, but some of our fishing boots. So that whole launch and stuff that was supposed to ship in a month basically got shut down. We didn't have product, and if you're in an inventory, consumer goods type of business, the inventory is what keeps you in business. And that was a super challenging moment for us. Sean was gone. Our factories had closed. We had a backup factory, but we didn't have enough time to capture some of those winter boot orders that we needed to get and service customers like REI. So what we did was we had to tell a lot of the retailers, sorry, but we don't have product. We decided to ship, because we had some carryover inventory from the year before, we decided to ship the REIs and some of the top name retailers, and we're still doing business with them today, so I guess that was a good decision. But there's another story of just being in a challenging environment, not knowing what to do, just having kind of getting put up against a wall, and really having to be crafty about how to get out of it. And so essentially what happened, just to kind of close that story down, we had another factory that we worked with. We were able to transfer everything to the other factory, and we were able to get production back up and running. We missed the winter season with some of those customers, but we were able to get back on our feet and continue to run our business. And we ended up having actually one of our better years that year, not only in terms of sales, but just in terms of profitability. So it all kind of worked out, and it's just about sticking with it and persevering through those hard times. So those are my kind of 3 stories, really, that I feel like encapsulates some of my experience in this business. What I've learned from being in this business and about perseverance, and there's kind of 3 takeaways I would give to you. You have to be committed. You really have to be committed to the business. If you're thinking about getting into a new business or starting a new business, you better be committed, because things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go south. It's not a matter of, if it happens, it's a matter of when it happens. And if you're not committed, if your heart's not really in it, I think you'll have a hard time making it through those hard times. So commitment is key. Secondly, you have to be agile. So, for me, it's always about having a plan B. What if, here's our plan, but what if this doesn't work? How can I cut overhead? How can I reinvent the business so that we can make it through this, bad economy, or this customer not paying, going bankrupt and going out of business and leaving it with a big bill. You have to have that kind of plan in place, and you always have to be thinking about, your kind of plan B. So being agile and maintaining flexibility, I think, is key. Last, enjoy the journey. There's been times in this business, oftentimes, where I'm wondering what the hell I'm doing. Why am I doing this? It's a lot of responsibility. It's 24/7. For me, I think about it all the time, and it's a struggle. I made more money when I was straight out of college than a lot of the years I've been at Korkers, and so it's definitely not about the money. But looking back on all this kind of helped me think about a lot of the good times that I've had. But all the people that I've met, all the cool things I've been able to see by traveling to Asia, going to Japan, seeing some of our distributors internationally, they're all experiences that I would never trade. So I think it's important, you get stuck in the business day to day, but it's really important to think about just enjoying the ride. You're on a ride. Sometimes it feels like hell, but at the same time, I'd rather go through the things that I've been through than kind of sit in an office from 9 to 5. So those are my 3 takeaways. And again, I appreciate being here, and hopefully my stories have helped you kind of understand what it takes to persevere through hard times. And I wish you all a lot of success in the future. And thank you again for having me.